I sat at table 7 of the Riverside Conference Center, watching my boss Marcus walk between the elegantly decorated tables with his stack of wrapped presents. 23 employees had gathered for our annual Christmas dinner, the room buzzing with holiday excitement. Crystal glasses caught the warm glow from overhead chandeliers as Marcus called out names with theatrical flair. Sarah from accounting unwrapped a luxury spa day voucher. James from marketing received the latest noise-canceling headphones. Emma from customer service squealed with delight over a premium restaurant gift card worth $200. One by one, my coworkers received their thoughtfully chosen gifts, while I maintained perfect composure, my hands folded calmly in my lap. Marcus approached my table, made direct eye contact with me, then deliberately stepped past without calling my name. I reached for my phone under the white linen tablecloth and typed a simple message to myself, "Document everything." This was no accident. Monday morning arrived with the usual bustle of returning employees, sharing weekend stories and displaying their Christmas gifts. I walked through the office corridors with fresh eyes, suddenly seeing patterns that had been hiding in plain sight for months. 3 months earlier, I had been mysteriously excluded from the quarterly team lunch, despite being the department's top performer that quarter. My sales numbers exceeded targets by 45%, yet somehow my invitation got lost in the shuffle. I remembered sitting at my desk that afternoon, watching through the conference room glass, as my colleagues enjoyed catered sandwiches and celebratory cake. 6 weeks before the Christmas party, my major project presentation had been rescheduled without any notification reaching me. I discovered the change only when I arrived at the conference room to find it occupied by another team. My presentation to the executive board showcasing a client retention strategy I had spent 2 months developing was moved to the following week when half the executives would be traveling. The opportunity to showcase my work to senior leadership vanished like morning fog. Then there was the parking situation from last month. My assigned spot near the building entrance, earned through 3 years of perfect attendance, was suddenly reassigned to David, a new hire who had been with the company for exactly 6 weeks. When I questioned the facilities manager about this change, he mumbled something about parking assignments being rotated fairly, though no other employee had experienced such rotation. Tracy from Human Resources approached my desk during lunch break, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by concern. She glanced around nervously before pulling up a chair beside me. Tracy had shoulder-length auburn hair and wore wire-rimmed glasses that reflected the fluorescent office lighting. She spoke in hushed tones, checking repeatedly to ensure we were alone. "Juanita, I noticed what happened at the Christmas dinner." She began fidgeting with her coffee cup. "I've been wanting to talk to you about some things I've observed. This isn't the first time Marcus has targeted someone like this." My stomach tightened as Tracy continued. She revealed that 2 other female employees had experienced similar systematic exclusion before quietly leaving the company. Amanda from the finance department had been gradually isolated from team meetings and decision-making processes until she felt completely marginalized. Jessica from operations found herself excluded from client events and networking opportunities that were crucial for career advancement. "They both filed complaints before leaving," Tracy whispered, glancing toward Marcus's corner office. "Nothing came of them. Sharon in HR said there wasn't enough concrete evidence of intentional discrimination." David appeared at my desk later that afternoon, clearly uncomfortable about something. He was a tall, lanky man in his late 20s with nervous energy and a habit of adjusting his tie when anxious. His face was flushed with embarrassment as he approached. "Juanita, I need to talk to you about the parking spot situation," he said, looking genuinely distressed. "I didn't ask for your spot specifically. Marcus told me it was available due to departmental restructurings, but I had no idea it belonged to someone with seniority. I feel terrible about this whole thing. David's confession confirmed my suspicions. Marcus had orchestrated these changes, deliberately creating stories to justify his actions while maintaining plausible deniability. The pattern was becoming undeniably clear, but I needed concrete proof of his intentions. That evening, Tracy sent me a text message asking if we could meet privately the next morning. When we met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office, she revealed something that made my blood run cold. She showed me screenshots of a group text message from Marcus to several team members dated 2 weeks earlier. The message read, "Regarding team activities and informal gatherings, please note that Juanita will not be included moving forward. She's become a problem employee who needs to understand her place within this organization. This decision comes from management and is not open for discussion." My hands trembled as I read the words on Tracy's phone screen. Here was documented proof of Marcus's deliberate campaign against me, distributed to my own colleagues. The casual cruelty of his language hit me like a physical blow. He had not only decided to isolate me, but had enlisted others in his campaign, turning my workplace into a hostile environment where my exclusion was a coordinated effort. "How many people received this message?" I asked, my voice barely steady. 12 team members," Tracy replied sadly. Most of them felt uncomfortable about it, but nobody wanted to challenge Marcus directly. Everyone's afraid of becoming his next target. The pieces of my recent workplace experience suddenly clicked into place like a puzzle solving itself. The missed invitations, the rescheduled meetings, the parking reassignment, the Christmas gift exclusion, all of it had been orchestrated by one man who wielded his managerial power like a weapon against anyone who dared to challenge him. I thought back to the incident that had likely triggered this campaign of retribution. 2 months ago, Marcus had made inappropriate comments about my appearance during a team meeting, suggesting that my success with clients was due to my looks rather than my professional skills. When I formally objected to his remarks and filed a complaint with Human Resources, I had believed I was standing up for professional respect and workplace dignity. Instead, I had painted a target on my back. Tuesday morning brought a new sense of purpose as I arrived at the office with a clear mission. If Marcus wanted to play games with documentation and evidence, I would beat him at his own game. I spent my lunch break purchasing a small digital recorder and downloading call recording apps on my personal phone. Every interaction with Marcus would now be preserved for posterity. My first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Alex from the IT department stopped by my desk late Tuesday afternoon with a concerned expression. Alex was a soft-spoken man in his early 30s, with prematurely gray hair and a reputation for being incredibly thorough in his work. He wore thick-framed glasses and had a nervous habit of drumming his fingers when he was troubled by something. "Juanita, I was running routine maintenance on the server yesterday and noticed some unusual access patterns in your files," he said quietly, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "Your performance review documents have been accessed and modified multiple times by someone with administrative privileges, but not during any scheduled review periods." My heart rate accelerated as Alex explained what he had discovered. Someone had been systematically editing my employee files, removing positive feedback from clients, and adding negative commentary that I had never seen during my actual performance review meetings. The digital timestamps showed these modifications had occurred weeks and months after my official review sessions. "Can you tell who made these changes?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Alex nodded grimly. "Marcus's administrator access code was used for all the modifications. I have the complete access logs if you need them." This revelation opened an entirely new dimension of Marcus's sabotage. He had not only been manipulating my current work environment, but had been rewriting my professional history within the company's official records. Anyone reviewing my file would see a distorted version of my performance carefully crafted to support a narrative of declining competence and attitude problems. Wednesday brought another ally to my growing collection of evidence. Carmen, a former employee who had left the company 6 months earlier, reached out to me through LinkedIn after Tracy had mentioned my situation during a professional networking event. Carmen's message was brief but intriguing. "I think we need to talk about Marcus. I have information that might help you." We met that evening at a quiet restaurant downtown, far from any chance encounter with current colleagues. Carmen was a striking woman in her 40s, with silver-streaked black hair and the confident bearing of someone who had learned hard lessons about workplace politics. Her story revealed the true scope of Marcus's behavior pattern. "I was promoted to senior analyst 3 years ago." Carmen began stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "My performance was exceptional. I brought in 2 major clients and streamlined our reporting processes to save the company thousands of dollars annually. Then I made the mistake of suggesting improvements to Marcus's project management approach during a team meeting." Carmen's experience mirrored my own with frightening accuracy. After challenging Marcus's methods, she found herself gradually excluded from important meetings and strategic discussions. Her project assignments shifted from high-visibility client work to mundane administrative tasks. Her office was relocated to a less desirable location, and her parking privileges were revoked for alleged policy violations that other employees seemed exempt from following. The final straw came when Marcus sabotaged my promotion opportunity. Carmen continued, her voice carrying years of accumulated anger. "I was being considered for a department head position in our Phoenix branch. It would have been a significant career advancement with a substantial salary increase. Marcus was supposed to provide a reference as my direct supervisor." She pulled out her phone and showed me an email chain that made my stomach turn. Marcus had sent a scathing reference to the Phoenix hiring manager describing Carmen as difficult to manage, resistant to feedback, and lacking leadership potential. However, Carmen had managed to obtain a copy of this reference through a connection in the Phoenix office, revealing Marcus's deliberate sabotage of her career prospects. "I still have all the documentation from my time there," Carmen offered. "Performance reviews, client feedback, project completions. Everything that proves my actual work quality. It directly contradicts everything Marcus said about me in that reference." Thursday brought validation from an unexpected source. Robert Chen, one of my major clients, called me directly to discuss some concerns about our upcoming project timeline. During our conversation, he mentioned how much he had enjoyed working with me and how impressed he was with my innovative approach to solving his company's logistics challenges. "I made sure to include all of that in my feedback to your management," Robert said cheerfully. "I told them you were one of the most competent and creative account managers we've worked with in years. I hope that helped with your performance evaluations." My heart sank as I realized that Robert's glowing feedback had never reached my official file. When I checked my performance review documents later that day, there was no mention of Robert's praise anywhere in the records. Marcus had intercepted this positive client feedback and buried it completely, ensuring that my file reflected only negative or neutral commentary. That same afternoon, I made a disturbing discovery about my email communications. While organizing my inbox, I noticed that several messages I had sent to upper management had never received responses, which was unusual given their time-sensitive nature. These were professional communications about process improvements and client concerns, the type of proactive communication that typically received acknowledgement, if not enthusiastic approval. Using my personal email account, I sent a test message to Patricia, one of the senior executives, asking if she had received my recent suggestions about streamlining our customer service protocols. Her response was immediate and troubling. She had never received any of my messages. Working with Alex, I discovered that Marcus had implemented email routing rules that intercepted messages from my account to senior management. These messages were being automatically redirected to a folder in Marcus's email system where he could review and delete them before they reached their intended recipients. My voice within the organization had been systematically silenced without my knowledge. By Friday afternoon, I had accumulated a substantial collection of evidence-recorded conversations, email routing logs, client testimonials that contradicted my official file access records, showing unauthorized modifications to my performance reviews, and testimonials from former employees who had experienced identical treatment. The pattern of deliberate sabotage was undeniable, but I realized that Marcus's behavior represented more than personal vindictiveness. He was systematically destroying the careers of anyone who challenged his authority or threatened his position within the company hierarchy. This was not random workplace bullying, but calculated professional assassination carried out with the precision of someone who understood exactly how to weaponize corporate systems against individual employees. The most chilling realization was that Marcus had been perfecting this system for years, learning from each campaign against previous targets. By the time I recognized what was happening to me, he had already refined his methods to near perfection, leaving virtually no obvious fingerprints while systematically dismantling my professional reputation and workplace relationships. Monday morning of the following week brought revelations that staggered me with their calculated cruelty. Patricia Williams, the senior executive who had been unaware of my intercepted emails, requested a meeting to discuss some innovative proposals that had supposedly originated from Marcus. As she described these groundbreaking ideas for improving client relationships and streamlining departmental workflows, I felt my stomach drop into freefall. Every single proposal she attributed to Marcus was an idea I had submitted through email months earlier, emails that had been intercepted and buried in his private folder. Marcus had not only prevented my suggestions from reaching management, but had then presented them as his own original thinking during executive meetings. He was literally stealing my intellectual contributions while simultaneously portraying me as an underperforming employee. Marcus showed remarkable initiative in developing these concepts, Patricia continued, oblivious to the truth. His approach to client retention through personalized service protocols could revolutionize how we handle our major accounts. Those personalized service protocols were the result of 3 weeks of research and analysis I had conducted on my own time studying our client database and identifying patterns that could improve satisfaction rates. I had documented everything meticulously, creating detailed implementation plans with projected cost savings and efficiency improvements. Marcus had taken my work wholesale, presenting it to executives as evidence of his own strategic thinking and management capabilities. Miguel Santos from Facilities Management provided another piece of the puzzle when he approached me during lunch. Miguel was a kind-hearted man in his 50s who took pride in maintaining positive relationships with employees throughout the building. His weathered hands spoke of years of manual labor before his promotion to management, and his genuine concern for employee welfare made him popular among staff members who appreciated his straightforward manner. "Juanita, I wanted to apologize about your office relocation," Miguel said, his voice heavy with regret. "Marcus specifically requested that you be moved to the basement level. He said it was necessary for better workflow management, but I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I've never seen workflow improved by isolating someone in the basement." The basement office assignment made perfect sense within Marcus's larger campaign. By relocating me away from the main floor where most client interactions and team collaborations occurred, he was further isolating me from the natural networking and visibility that successful employees needed for career advancement. The basement location also carried subtle psychological implications, suggesting that I was being demoted or marginalized within the company hierarchy. He also made some comments about your attitude that didn't sit right with me, Miguel continued reluctantly. He said you were developing a reputation as difficult to work with, and that some space might help you adjust your perspective. I didn't believe it then, and I believe it even less now after seeing how you've handled this situation with such grace. Linda Patterson from Human Resources Training Coordination provided the most shocking revelation of the week. Linda was a meticulous woman in her early 40s who took her responsibility for employee development seriously. She had been with the company for 8 years and prided herself on creating training schedules that supported rather than hindered employee success. "Juanita, I need to tell you something that's been bothering me," Linda said during a private conversation in the break room. "Marcus has been pressuring me to schedule mandatory training sessions that conflict with your important meetings and presentations. He provides me with your calendar information and specifically requests training dates that will create scheduling conflicts. My major client presentation with the Morrison Group scheduled for the following Wednesday had been sabotaged in exactly this manner. Marcus had insisted that I attend a mandatory compliance training session at the exact same time as my presentation, claiming that missing the training would result in disciplinary action. The training covered information I had already completed earlier in the year, but Marcus maintained that new regulations required refresher sessions for all employees. I felt uncomfortable about the scheduling conflicts, but Marcus told me it was necessary for team development," Linda continued. "He said some employees needed to learn that client work couldn't always take priority over company requirements. The way he specifically targeted your schedule made me suspicious. This revelation exposed another layer of Marcus's sabotage strategy. By forcing me to choose between compliance training and client presentations, he was creating lose-lose scenarios where any choice I made would reflect poorly on my professional judgment. Missing the training would provide grounds for disciplinary action based on policy violations, while missing the client presentation would damage my relationship with important accounts and suggest unreliability. Thursday brought the most terrifying discovery yet. Through careful observation and strategic questions to various colleagues, I learned that Marcus had been conducting private meetings with company president William Henderson, specifically discussing my performance and attitude. According to Jennifer Walsh from accounting, who had overheard conversations while delivering financial reports, Marcus had been positioning himself for a significant promotion by demonstrating his ability to handle difficult personnel situations. Jennifer was a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s with an attention to detail that made her invaluable in financial analysis. She had noticed irregularities in departmental budget reports that suggested Marcus was manipulating financial data to support his narratives about employee performance and management effectiveness. Marcus has been claiming credit for departmental improvements while downplaying the contributions of individual team members, Jennifer explained privately. His budget reports show increased efficiency and cost savings, but when I analyzed the underlying data, most of those improvements came from employee initiatives that he had opposed or ignored when they were first proposed. The financial manipulation extended beyond simple credit theft. Marcus had been systematically underreporting my contributions to major client wins, making his own management appear more effective while minimizing the success of employees who might be considered for advancement. My successful closure of the Davidson Industries contract, which brought in over $800,000 in annual revenue, was attributed primarily to departmental strategy and management oversight rather than individual sales excellence. Most alarmingly, Jennifer had discovered that Marcus was scheduled to meet with President Henderson on Friday of the following week. The meeting agenda, which she had glimpsed while delivering quarterly reports, included a recommendation for my termination based on performance concerns and cultural fit issues. "He's been building a case against you for months," Jennifer warned. The meeting agenda specifically mentions recommending your removal for the good of team morale and company culture. He's portraying your termination as necessary leadership decision-making. Friday afternoon brought a conversation that crystallized the urgency of my situation. Kevin Martinez, one of the building security guards, approached me as I was leaving for the day. Kevin was an observant man in his 40s who took his responsibility for employee safety seriously. His military background had trained him to notice patterns and behaviors that others might miss. "Ms. Juanita, I need to tell you about some things I've witnessed," Kevin said, glancing around to ensure privacy. "I've seen Mr. Marcus behaving inappropriately towards several female employees over the past year, and I've been documenting these incidents because they made me uncomfortable." Kevin revealed that he had observed Marcus making comments about female employees' appearance standing unnecessarily close during conversations, and using his position of authority to make women uncomfortable in ways that skirted the edges of sexual harassment policies. More importantly, Kevin had security footage of some of these interactions, including the incident that had triggered Marcus's campaign against me. "I recorded the team meeting where he made those comments about your appearance," Kevin explained. "I was monitoring the conference room security feed during a routine check, and I heard everything he said. At the time, I wasn't sure if I should report it, but after seeing how he's treated you since then, I realize his behavior is part of a bigger pattern." The security footage would provide irrefutable evidence of Marcus's inappropriate conduct and help establish the timeline that connected his harassment to the subsequent retaliation I had experienced. Kevin's willingness to come forward demonstrated that Marcus's behavior had been noticed by others who were troubled by what they observed, but uncertain about how to address it. As I drove home Friday evening, the full scope of Marcus's campaign became terrifyingly clear. He had been systematically destroying my career through email interception, file manipulation, credit theft, strategic isolation, and schedule sabotage, while simultaneously building a false narrative about my performance and attitude. His ultimate goal was not just to marginalize me within the company, but to have me terminated in a way that would make me appear to be a justifiable casualty of good management practices. The most chilling aspect of his strategy was its sophistication. Marcus had spent months creating documented evidence to support his false narrative, while simultaneously eliminating evidence that contradicted it. By the time he made his recommendation to President Henderson, he would have a compelling case built on manufactured evidence and strategic manipulation of company systems. I realized that I had perhaps 1 week to gather allies, compile evidence, and present a counter-narrative before Marcus's Friday meeting with the president. The stakes had escalated beyond workplace harassment or career advancement. My professional reputation and financial survival were now hanging in the balance, dependent on my ability to expose a carefully orchestrated campaign of professional assassination. Saturday morning found me sitting in my kitchen with legal pads, sticky notes, and printed documents spread across every available surface. I had spent Friday night organizing evidence and developing a strategy that would require perfect timing and coordination. The coffee maker worked overtime as I prepared for what would either be the salvation or destruction of my career at the company. Tracy arrived first, carrying a box of additional documentation she had gathered over the past week. Her decision to support me despite the personal risk demonstrated courage that I deeply respected. She had brought copies of the group text message from Marcus, along with other communications that revealed his pattern of targeting female employees who challenged his authority. "I've been thinking about this all weekend," Tracy said, settling into the chair across from my kitchen table. "What Marcus is doing goes beyond normal workplace politics. This is systematic harassment designed to destroy careers, and it needs to stop before he targets someone else." Elena Rodriguez joined us an hour later, and her story added another devastating piece to the puzzle of Marcus's behavior. Elena was a competent woman in her early 30s who had been demoted from senior analyst to junior specialist 6 months earlier. Her demotion had been presented as a temporary restructuring measure, but the promised timeline for review and restoration had never materialized. I was demoted after suggesting improvements to our client onboarding process. Elena explained, her voice carrying the weight of accumulated frustration. Marcus claimed that my suggestions showed I didn't understand proper hierarchies and that I needed to learn my place within the organization before taking on senior responsibilities. Elena's suggested improvements had been innovative and well-researched, focusing on reducing client onboarding time from 6 weeks to 3 weeks through streamlined documentation and parallel processing procedures. Her suggestions would have saved the company both time and money while improving client satisfaction, but Marcus had characterized them as insubordination rather than initiative. After my demotion, I noticed that several of my process improvements were quietly implemented, but Marcus took credit for developing them, Elena continued. He presented them to upper management as examples of his own strategic thinking and problem-solving capabilities. Alex arrived with a laptop bag full of technical evidence that would prove crucial to our case. His documentation of system access logs, email routing modifications, and file tampering provided objective proof of Marcus's sabotage activities. The technical evidence was particularly powerful because it showed deliberate manipulation rather than accidental oversight or policy misunderstandings. I've been analyzing the server logs more thoroughly, Alex reported, opening his laptop and displaying a series of data charts. Marcus's access patterns show systematic targeting of specific employee files. He's not randomly checking personnel records. He's deliberately accessing and modifying files for employees who have filed complaints or challenged his decisions. The technical evidence revealed that Marcus had accessed my files 47 times over the past 4 months, far exceeding any legitimate management review requirements. He had modified documents, deleted positive feedback, and added negative commentary during sessions that typically lasted 20 to 30 minutes. Enough time for substantial editing, but brief enough to avoid attracting attention from routine security monitoring. Jennifer Walsh arrived with financial documentation that exposed another dimension of Marcus's deception. Her analysis of departmental budgets and performance metrics revealed systematic credit theft and misrepresentation of individual employee contributions to company success. Marcus has been manipulating budget reports to minimize individual achievements while maximizing his own management statistics, Jennifer explained, spreading financial charts across the table. Your successful client acquisitions are reported as departmental wins rather than individual sales excellence. Your cost-saving initiatives are attributed to management oversight rather than employee innovation. The financial manipulation served multiple purposes within Marcus's strategy. It supported his narrative about being an effective manager who improved departmental performance while simultaneously undermining evidence of individual employee excellence that might contradict his claims about performance problems and attitude issues. Carmen joined our growing alliance that afternoon, bringing documentation from her own experience with Marcus that established his long-term pattern of behavior. Her evidence was particularly valuable because it showed that his current campaign against me was not an isolated incident, but part of a systematic approach to eliminating employees who challenged his authority. I've contacted 2 other former employees who experienced similar treatment, Carmen reported. Both are willing to provide written statements about their experiences if needed. Marcus's behavior represents a clear pattern that has been ongoing for at least 3 years. Kevin Martinez arrived in the early evening with security footage that would provide visual evidence of Marcus's inappropriate behavior. The recording showed him making comments about female employees' appearance standing inappropriately close during conversations and using body language that clearly made women uncomfortable. I have footage from 12 different incidents over the past 8 months, Kevin explained. The recordings show a pattern of behavior that violates company policies about respectful workplace conduct. The footage of the team meeting where he made inappropriate comments about Juanita is particularly clear. As our alliance solidified, we developed a comprehensive strategy for presenting our evidence to company leadership. The plan required careful timing and coordination to maximize impact while minimizing opportunities for Marcus to discredit our accusations or retaliate against alliance members. Elena would schedule a meeting with President Henderson under the pretense of presenting a departmental improvement proposal. This approach would provide legitimate access to senior leadership without alerting Marcus to our investigation. Meanwhile, Patricia Williams would be approached separately about concerns regarding idea attribution and management communication, creating a secondary channel for information to reach executive leadership. Sunday evening brought an unexpected breakthrough when Linda Patterson called to inform me about a concerning development. Marcus had scheduled an emergency mandatory training session for Wednesday morning, exactly coinciding with my rescheduled Morrison Group presentation. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental, representing another attempt to sabotage my client relationships while maintaining plausible deniability. I refuse to schedule the training, Linda declared firmly. I told Marcus that emergency training sessions require advance approval from human resources and that the suggested timing created unnecessary conflicts with established client meetings. He was not pleased with my response. Linda's refusal to cooperate marked a turning point in Marcus's ability to manipulate company systems without opposition. His previous success had depended on the cooperation of employees who were unaware of his larger strategy or too intimidated to challenge his requests. When employees began refusing to enable his sabotage, his power to orchestrate destruction was significantly diminished. Monday morning brought final preparations for our coordinated presentation to company leadership. We had assembled a comprehensive case that included technical evidence, financial documentation, witness testimony, security footage, and examples of systematic retaliation against multiple employees. The evidence was so extensive and well documented that disputing it would require either willful ignorance or deliberate complicity. The most powerful aspect of our case was its demonstration of Marcus's sophisticated manipulation of company systems to achieve personal goals at the expense of employee welfare and company success. His actions represented not just workplace harassment, but fraud, theft of intellectual property, and systematic abuse of managerial authority for personal advancement. Tuesday afternoon, Elena successfully scheduled our meeting with President Henderson for Thursday morning, exactly 24 hours before Marcus's scheduled termination recommendation. The timing would give us the opportunity to present our evidence before Marcus could execute his final strategy, while providing enough advance notice for leadership to investigate our claims and take appropriate action. As I prepared for the most important meeting of my professional life, I reflected on how Marcus's campaign against me had inadvertently created something positive and powerful. His systematic targeting of multiple employees had eventually brought together a group of people who were committed to exposing workplace abuse and protecting future victims from similar treatment. The alliance we had formed represented more than just a defense against one man's misconduct. It was a demonstration that employees could successfully organize against systematic abuse when they were willing to support each other and document evidence carefully. Our success would send a message throughout the company that harassment and retaliation would not be tolerated regardless of the perpetrator's position within the corporate hierarchy. Wednesday evening, as I reviewed our presentation materials one final time, I felt a sense of calm determination that surprised me. The fear and uncertainty that had dominated my thoughts for months had been replaced by confidence in our evidence and trust in our alliance. Tomorrow would bring either vindication or catastrophe, but regardless of the outcome, we had refused to allow Marcus's abuse to continue unchallenged. Thursday morning arrived with crystalline clarity and perfect timing. Elena had scheduled our presentation for 9 o'clock, giving us 90 minutes to present our case before Marcus's scheduled meeting with President Henderson at 10:30. The conference room on the executive floor felt different as we arranged our evidence and prepared for what would determine the future of multiple careers. President William Henderson entered the conference room with the bearing of someone who had built his reputation on making difficult decisions based on factual evidence. He was a man in his late 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed very little. His reputation for fairness and decisive action had earned respect throughout the company, but he also valued efficiency and expected presentations to be well organized and substantive. Elena mentioned that you have concerns about departmental management that require executive attention. President Henderson began settling into his chair and checking his watch. I have limited time this morning, so please present your information concisely and thoroughly. Elena began our presentation by establishing the timeline of events and introducing each alliance member's role in uncovering Marcus's systematic abuse of authority. She presented our evidence methodically, starting with the pattern of targeting employees who challenged Marcus's decisions and progressing through the specific mechanisms he used to sabotage careers and steal credit for innovations. Tracy presented the communication evidence, including screenshots of Marcus's group text message, instructing team members to exclude me from workplace activities. The casual cruelty of his language was particularly damaging when read aloud in the formal setting of the executive conference room. This message demonstrates deliberate coordination to isolate an employee based on personal animosity rather than legitimate business concerns. Tracy explained, projecting the text message onto the conference room screen. Multiple employees received instructions to participate in systematic exclusion, creating a hostile work environment through coordinated harassment. Alex followed with technical evidence that proved Marcus's manipulation of company systems for personal gain. His presentation included detailed logs showing unauthorized access to employee files, systematic modification of performance reviews, and email routing changes that prevented communication between employees and senior management. The technical evidence shows 47 unauthorized accesses to employee files over 4 months, with modifications that consistently removed positive feedback while adding negative commentary. Alex explained, displaying access logs on his laptop screen. The email routing modifications prevented legitimate business communication from reaching intended recipients, essentially silencing employee voices within the organization. Jennifer's financial analysis revealed the scope of Marcus's credit theft and budget manipulation. Her charts clearly demonstrated how individual employee achievements had been systematically reattributed to management effectiveness, while cost-saving initiatives and revenue generation were misrepresented in departmental reports. These financial manipulations served dual purposes, Jennifer explained, pointing to specific discrepancies in her analysis. They supported false narratives about individual employee performance while inflating management effectiveness metrics that would support promotion recommendations. Carmen provided historical context by describing her own experience with Marcus's systematic targeting, along with written statements from other former employees who had experienced similar treatment. Her testimony established that current events represented an ongoing pattern rather than isolated incidents. Marcus's behavior represents a consistent strategy that has been deployed against multiple employees over several years, Carmen testified. The pattern includes isolation, credit theft, schedule manipulation, file tampering, and ultimately termination recommendations based on manufactured evidence. Kevin's security footage provided visual confirmation of Marcus's inappropriate conduct and harassment. The recordings showed clear policy violations that had occurred in public areas where employees could observe the behavior but felt powerless to address it without risking retaliation. These recordings document 12 separate incidents of inappropriate conduct, including the team meeting where Mr. Marcus made derogatory comments about employee appearance that triggered subsequent retaliation. Kevin explained, queuing up specific footage segments. The behavior shown in these recordings violates multiple company policies regarding respectful workplace conduct. As our presentation progressed, President Henderson's expression shifted from polite attention to serious concern to barely controlled anger. The systematic nature of Marcus's abuse was undeniable when presented as a comprehensive pattern supported by multiple forms of evidence from different sources.
"This is extremely serious,"
President Henderson said grimly, reviewing the technical evidence on Alex's laptop. "If these allegations are accurate, we're looking at systematic fraud, harassment, theft of intellectual property, and abuse of managerial authority. These actions represent grounds for immediate termination and potential legal action." During our presentation, Patricia Williams arrived unexpectedly, having heard about the meeting through executive communications. Her presence added credibility to our allegations while providing another witness to our evidence presentation. "I need to address something that relates directly to this situation," Patricia announced, joining the meeting without invitation. "Yesterday, I discovered that several innovative proposals I attributed to Marcus were actually originated by other employees. The intellectual property theft goes beyond what's been presented here." Patricia's confirmation of idea theft was particularly damaging because it came from a senior executive who had been personally deceived by Marcus's strategies. Her testimony demonstrated that his manipulation had successfully influenced senior leadership decision-making while undermining deserving employees. At exactly 10:15, Marcus arrived at the executive floor for his scheduled meeting with President Henderson. Through the conference room windows, we could see him waiting in the reception area, reviewing notes and preparing for what he expected would be a routine termination recommendation meeting. President Henderson made a strategic decision that revealed his management style and commitment to thorough investigation. Rather than confronting Marcus immediately with our allegations, he invited Marcus into the conference room while our alliance remained present to observe his responses to questioning.
"Marcus, please join us,"
President Henderson called through the conference room door. "We're discussing some concerns about departmental management that require your input." Marcus entered the conference room with confidence that quickly transformed into confusion and then alarm as he recognized the assembled alliance and our displayed evidence. His professional composure faltered as he realized that his carefully constructed narrative was about to be challenged by documented proof of his misconduct.
"I wasn't expecting this to be a group meeting,"
Marcus said cautiously, his eyes scanning the evidence displays and recognizing several damaging documents. "If this is about personnel issues, perhaps we should discuss them privately to protect confidentiality." President Henderson's response was direct and uncompromising. "The personnel issues we're discussing involve your systematic abuse of managerial authority, fraud, harassment, and theft of intellectual property. The evidence presented this morning suggests that your termination recommendation for Ms. Rodriguez is based entirely on manufactured complaints and retaliation for her legitimate grievance filing." Marcus's attempts to discredit our evidence became increasingly desperate as the weight of documentation proved overwhelming. He claimed that disgruntled employees were coordinating false accusations, that technical evidence had been misinterpreted, and that his management decisions were based on legitimate performance concerns. These allegations represent a coordinated attack by employees who refuse to accept constructive feedback and professional accountability, Marcus declared, his voice rising with panic.
Ms. Rodriguez has been a problem employee since day one, and her attempts to manipulate company systems to avoid consequences demonstrate exactly why she needs to be terminated. His response revealed the extent of his delusion and sense of entitlement. Even when confronted with irrefutable evidence of systematic abuse, Marcus continued to portray himself as a victim of employee insubordination rather than acknowledging his misconduct. The turning point came when President Henderson directly questioned Marcus about specific incidents documented in our evidence. When asked about the group text message instructing employees to exclude me from workplace activities, Marcus initially denied sending such communications before reluctantly admitting that he might have made suggestions about team dynamics.
Team dynamics require careful management, Marcus explained weakly.
Sometimes it's necessary to make adjustments to improve workplace efficiency and morale.
His admission of deliberately orchestrating my isolation demolished any remaining credibility regarding his claims about performance-based management decisions. The systematic nature of his campaign became undeniable when he acknowledged coordinating employee exclusion while maintaining that such actions were legitimate management tools. The confrontation reached its climactic moment when President Henderson placed printed copies of Marcus's email interception logs directly in front of him on the conference table. The technical evidence was irrefutable. Detailed server logs showing systematic redirection of my communications to senior management, complete with timestamps and IP addresses that could only have originated from Marcus's administrative access. Explain why you implemented email routing rules that prevented employee communications from reaching their intended recipients. President Henderson demanded his voice carrying the authority of someone who had built his career on cutting through deception and getting to factual truth. Marcus's face drained of color as he stared at the technical documentation. His hands trembled slightly as he shuffled through the papers, searching for an explanation that could justify the unjustifiable. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before he attempted a response that only deepened his predicament.
Sometimes employee communications require management review before reaching executive leadership.
Marcus stammered, his usual confidence completely shattered.
It's standard practice to ensure that information is properly vetted and appropriately contextualized before it reaches senior decision-makers.
Alex immediately challenged this fabrication with devastating precision.
There are no company policies that authorize email interception without employee knowledge, he stated firmly.
The routing rules you implemented were hidden from users and designed to prevent communication rather than review it. The intercepted messages were stored in your private folders rather than forwarded to appropriate management channels. Patricia Williams leaned forward with an expression of barely controlled fury as she addressed Marcus directly. You told me that the innovative client retention strategies were your original ideas. You presented them in executive meetings as examples of your strategic thinking and leadership capabilities. Now I discover that these concepts were stolen from the very employee you're trying to have terminated. The room's atmosphere became electric with tension as Patricia's accusation hung in the air. Marcus's theft of intellectual property was no longer a technical violation of company policy, but a personal betrayal of the executive who had praised his supposed innovations and considered him for advancement based on stolen work. Those strategies required significant refinement and managerial oversight before they could be properly implemented, Marcus replied desperately.
Employee suggestions often need substantial development and strategic context before they become viable business solutions.
Jennifer Walsh stood up and placed financial charts directly in front of Marcus, her accounting expertise lending mathematical precision to her accusations. These budget reports show systematic misrepresentation of individual employee contributions to departmental success. You've been inflating your own management statistics while minimizing the achievements of employees you wanted to marginalize. The financial evidence was particularly damaging because it demonstrated fraud in official company reporting. Marcus had not only stolen credit for individual innovations, but had documented this theft in formal budget analyses that were used for performance evaluations and promotion decisions. Elena Rodriguez, who had remained quietly observant throughout most of the confrontation, finally spoke with a voice that carried months of accumulated anger and frustration. "You demoted me for suggesting process improvements that would have saved the company thousands of dollars annually. Then you implemented those same improvements and took credit for developing them. You've been systematically destroying the careers of employees whose competence threatened your own mediocrity." Her words struck Marcus like physical blows. Elena's demotion had been presented as a temporary restructuring measure, but her accusation revealed it as deliberate retaliation designed to remove a competent employee whose innovations highlighted Marcus's own lack of strategic thinking. Carmen stepped forward with copies of her employment records and the devastating reference letter that Marcus had sent to sabotage her promotion opportunity. "You destroyed my chance for career advancement by sending false information to potential employers. Your reference letter contained outright lies about my performance and capabilities, ensuring that I would be rejected for positions I was highly qualified to fill." The reference letter was particularly damaging evidence because it demonstrated Marcus's willingness to extend his sabotage beyond company boundaries. He had used his position of authority to damage Carmen's external career prospects, revealing a level of vindictiveness that went far beyond normal workplace conflicts. Kevin Martinez activated his laptop and displayed security footage that showed Marcus making inappropriate comments about female employees in common areas where his behavior could be observed but was unlikely to be formally reported. The visual evidence was undeniable. Clear footage of policy violations that had created a hostile work environment for multiple women. This footage shows a pattern of harassment that created an atmosphere of fear and discomfort for female employees, Kevin testified. Mr. Marcus used his authority to make women feel vulnerable and unwelcome, particularly those who challenged his decisions or demonstrated competence that threatened his position. Tracy presented the most damaging piece of evidence last: additional text messages and communications that revealed Marcus's contempt for female employees and his belief that women who challenged male authority needed to be taught their proper place within organizational hierarchies. These communications show systematic targeting of women who demonstrated independence, competence, or willingness to challenge inappropriate behavior. Tracy explained, displaying message screenshots that contained language so offensive that President Henderson's expression darkened with each revelation. As the evidence mounted beyond any possibility of denial or rationalization, Marcus's desperation led him to make the fatal error that would seal his fate. In a moment of panic and rage, he abandoned his attempts at justification and revealed his true character. "She deserved everything that happened to her," Marcus exploded, pointing directly at me with trembling finger. "Women like her need to understand that challenging male authority has consequences. I've worked too hard building my career to let some uppity female employee undermine my position with complaints and suggestions." The room fell into stunned silence as Marcus's words hung in the air like toxic fumes. In his desperation to defend himself, he had inadvertently confessed to deliberate retaliation based on gender discrimination and revealed the misogynistic motivations behind his systematic abuse. President Henderson's response was immediate and decisive. "Mr. Marcus, you are terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building, and all of your access to company systems and facilities is revoked. The company will be conducting a thorough investigation of your conduct, and we will be cooperating fully with any legal proceedings that may result from your actions." Marcus's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally desperate pleading as the reality of his situation became clear. "You can't terminate me based on accusations from disgruntled employees," he protested weakly. "I've been a loyal manager for 5 years.
I've improved departmental efficiency and maintained discipline among difficult employees. You've committed fraud, harassment, theft of intellectual property, and systematic abuse of authority. President Henderson replied coldly. Your actions have created legal liability for the company and damaged the careers of multiple employees. Your termination is not only justified but necessary to protect the organization and its remaining employees. Kevin Martinez called building security to escort Marcus from the premises, while Alex immediately began the process of revoking his system access and securing evidence of his misconduct. The technical team would need to conduct a complete audit of all files and communications to determine the full scope of damage and begin the process of restoring accurate records. As Marcus was led from the conference room by security personnel, his final words were a threat that revealed his complete inability to accept responsibility for his actions.
This isn't over,
he snarled, struggling against the security guard's firm but professional guidance.
I'll make sure everyone knows what really happened here.
President Henderson watched Marcus's removal with the grim satisfaction of someone who had successfully eliminated a cancer from his organization. Mr. Marcus's threats will be documented and reported to appropriate authorities, he announced. This company will not tolerate retaliation against employees who have courageously exposed systematic abuse. The truth had finally exploded with devastating force, destroying Marcus's carefully constructed facade and revealing the full scope of his misconduct. His own words had provided the final proof of deliberate discrimination and retaliation, ensuring that his termination would withstand any legal challenge and protecting the company from future liability. The silence that followed Marcus's removal felt like the calm after a devastating storm. President Henderson remained seated at the head of the conference table, processing the magnitude of what had been revealed and the systemic changes that would be necessary to prevent future abuse. His expression reflected both anger at Marcus's misconduct and determination to rebuild trust within the organization.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we've discovered today represents a complete failure of our management oversight systems.
President Henderson began, his voice carrying the weight of executive responsibility. Mr. Marcus was able to conduct systematic harassment and fraud for years without detection, which means our policies and procedures require immediate and comprehensive review. Patricia Williams immediately stepped forward to address the most urgent personnel matters. Juanita, I want to personally apologize for the injustices you've endured and for my unwitting participation in crediting stolen work to your abuser. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Marcus's position as department manager, with full authority to restructure operations and implement policies that will prevent future abuse. The promotion felt surreal after months of systematic targeting and professional sabotage. From facing termination 24 hours earlier to receiving the position of the man who had tried to destroy my career represented a reversal so complete that I struggled to process its implications. Elena, your demotion is reversed immediately with full back pay and compensation for the professional damage you've suffered, President Henderson announced. Your process improvement suggestions will be implemented company-wide with proper attribution, and you'll receive recognition for innovations that should have advanced your career months ago. Elena's relief was visible as years of accumulated injustice were finally acknowledged and remedied. Her demotion had been particularly cruel because it punished competence and innovation while rewarding mediocrity and abuse of authority. Tracy was promoted to assistant department manager, recognizing her crucial role in exposing Marcus's misconduct and her courage in risking retaliation to support the investigation. Her willingness to document evidence and coordinate with other alliance members had been essential to building our comprehensive case.
Alex, your technical expertise and ethical standards have been invaluable in uncovering systematic fraud and abuse.
President Henderson continued, You're promoted to head of IT security with primary responsibility for implementing safeguards that will prevent future manipulation of company systems. Alex's promotion reflected the company's recognition that technical safeguards were essential for preventing future abuse, and that his expertise would be crucial for rebuilding trust in organizational systems and communications. Jennifer Walsh received recognition for her financial analysis expertise and was assigned to lead a comprehensive audit of all departmental reports to identify and correct misrepresentations that might exist in other areas of the organization. Her mathematical precision and attention to detail would be essential for restoring accuracy to company records. Carmen was offered her previous position with substantial improvements, including the promotion opportunity that Marcus had sabotaged and compensation for the career damage she had suffered. Her willingness to return and share her experience would provide continuity and expertise that would benefit the entire organization. Kevin Martinez received formal recognition for his observational skills and courage in documenting inappropriate behavior that others had witnessed but felt powerless to address. His security footage had provided crucial evidence that made denial impossible and demonstrated the value of comprehensive workplace monitoring. Sharon Williams from Human Resources will be reassigned to training and development after additional education about recognizing harassment patterns and responding appropriately to employee complaints, President Henderson announced. Her failure to investigate legitimate grievances contributed to the systematic abuse that continued unchecked for far too long. The organizational changes extended beyond individual personnel decisions to comprehensive policy reforms designed to prevent future abuse. Anonymous reporting systems would be implemented to encourage employees to report misconduct without fear of retaliation. Management oversight procedures would be strengthened to detect unauthorized access to employee files and systematic targeting of individual employees. We're implementing mandatory training for all managers about appropriate workplace conduct, with particular emphasis on recognizing retaliation and preventing abuse of authority, Patricia Williams explained. Quarterly reviews will include specific evaluation of management fairness and employee treatment with anonymous feedback systems that bypass direct supervisors. The email routing and communication systems would be completely redesigned to prevent interception and ensure that employee communications reached their intended recipients. Technical safeguards would alert IT security whenever unusual access patterns or file modifications were detected. Over the following weeks, the transformation of departmental culture became evident in ways both large and small. The basement office was converted to additional storage space as all employees moved back to the main floor, where collaboration and communication could flourish. Team meetings became genuine discussions, where employee suggestions were welcomed and valued rather than suppressed. The mandatory training sessions that Marcus had used for schedule sabotage were replaced with flexible professional development opportunities that supported employee advancement rather than hindering it. Parking assignments were distributed fairly based on seniority and need rather than favoritism or punishment. Client relationships improved dramatically as employees felt empowered to share innovative ideas and take initiative without fear of retaliation. The Morrison Group presentation that Marcus had tried to sabotage became a tremendous success, leading to contract expansion and additional business opportunities. 6 months later, our department had become one of the most productive and innovative within the company. Employee satisfaction surveys showed dramatic improvements in morale, trust, and job satisfaction. The culture of fear and retaliation had been replaced by collaboration and mutual support. During my first departmental meeting as manager, I addressed the lessons we had learned from our experience with systematic abuse. What we discovered is that workplace harassment thrives in silence and isolation. I explained to the assembled team. When employees feel powerless to challenge abuse,
It spreads like cancer through an organization, destroying careers and undermining everything we're trying to accomplish together. The most important lesson was about the power of alliance and mutual support in confronting systematic abuse. Individual employees might feel helpless against managers who abuse their authority, but coordinated action by multiple people with documented evidence could successfully challenge even sophisticated campaigns of harassment and retaliation. Our success came from refusing to suffer alone and building coalitions of people who were committed to exposing the truth. I continued. When we documented everything, supported each other, and presented our evidence professionally, we demonstrated that employee voices matter and that abuse will not be tolerated. The company's response to our situation had exceeded expectations, showing that organizations led by ethical executives would take decisive action when presented with clear evidence of misconduct. President Henderson's immediate termination of Marcus and comprehensive policy reforms demonstrated genuine commitment to employee welfare and workplace justice. Elena implemented the process improvements that had originally triggered her demotion, resulting in significant cost savings and efficiency gains that benefited the entire organization. Her innovations were recognized company-wide, leading to consulting opportunities with other departments seeking similar improvements. Carmen's return brought experience and institutional knowledge that helped prevent future abuse, while her success story encouraged other former employees to consider returning to an organization that had demonstrated genuine commitment to change. At the company Christmas dinner 6 months later, I stood before my colleagues to give the traditional management remarks about the year's accomplishments and future goals. Every employee at every table had received thoughtful gifts that recognized their individual contributions and demonstrated genuine appreciation for their work. This year has taught us that workplace respect and employee dignity are not optional benefits, but essential foundations for organizational success. I said, looking out at faces that reflected confidence and satisfaction rather than fear and uncertainty. When employees feel valued and protected, they produce their best work and contribute innovations that benefit everyone. The transformation was complete, but the lessons were permanent. We had learned that systematic abuse could be defeated by coordinated action, documented evidence, and unwavering commitment to truth and justice. Most importantly, we had discovered that standing up for individual rights ultimately meant standing up for everyone who might face similar challenges in the future. The experience had taught me that true leadership means protecting those who cannot protect themselves and creating environments where everyone can contribute their best work without fear of retaliation or abuse. The greatest satisfaction came not from personal vindication, but from knowing that future employees would be protected by the policies and culture we had fought to establish. As I concluded my remarks at the Christmas dinner, I reflected on how far we had traveled from that evening when I sat alone at table 7 watching presents being distributed to everyone except me. The journey from isolation and targeted abuse to leadership and organizational transformation had required courage, persistence, and most importantly, the support of allies who refused to allow injustice to continue unchallenged. Our success this year proves that when good people unite against workplace abuse, they can create lasting change that protects everyone. I concluded. The most important gift we can give each other is the knowledge that we will stand together against anyone who tries to create fear and division in our workplace. The applause that followed was not just recognition of the year's accomplishments, but celebration of a workplace culture that valued every employee and protected everyone from the kind of systematic abuse that had once seemed unstoppable. We had transformed pain into purpose, isolation into alliance, and injustice into lasting positive change. Have you ever experienced workplace situations where you felt targeted or isolated by a supervisor or colleague? How did you handle it, and what advice would you give to others facing similar challenges? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story could inspire someone else who is currently struggling with workplace harassment or retaliation. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming professional challenges, and share it with anyone who might benefit from knowing that they don't have to face workplace abuse alone. Together, we can create workplaces where everyone feels valued and protected. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your voice matters. Your experiences are valid, and there are always people willing to stand with you when you're ready to stand up for what's right. Stay strong, document everything, and never underestimate the power of finding allies who share your commitment to truth and justice.